Look at him. He's just dickered. Just dickered, boys. Son of a bitch.
Yo, yo. Class A and macro. Not connected, not elected to participate. Bouncing down the stems will make your head hurt.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Take or Why. This is episode 205. Episodes are brought to you by DaveLevittPhotography.ca. He does music videos, websites, and promos. And if you're in the Cambridge 519 area, just get a hold of Dave online. And I'm sure if you just guest list him, he can take some sweet photos for you or some promos. I think that's important to have quality stuff. You want your music to be quality. You want all the stuff you put out to be quality. So he's a helpful tool in that. He'll get you some quality photos or even a music video. DaveLevittPhotography.ca. Also brought to you by DapperBeardOil.com. That is Andrew Rashad. He pretty much is a one-man show running his beard company, beard oil company, not a beard company. He doesn't manufacture beards, but a beard oil company. And it's naturally sourced. He has 3 brands, I believe. One's an unscented, and the other 2 kind of have their own unique thing to it. And I'm actually just going to pull it up here because I should really do better at promoting him. Here we go. It's okay. So yeah, it's made from 100% natural ingredients, ethically sourced. It helps hydrate your beard and it helps repair it. It's antibacterial. It helps reduce beard dandruff. So he's got the gold tusk, which is a fresh, spicy, earthy kind of vibe. And then there's the black tusk number 2, which is smoky cedar and cypress. And he's seen some press in like Huffington Post and CBC and GQ. And bottom line is just he is a guy trying to do good work. Not trying to, he's doing good work in his product. And I've had it, and it's not. I'm not bullshitting and saying like it's good stuff. So if you guys want to support him, just go to dapperbeardoil.com and just take a look. Like his page on Facebook or something, and maybe order something. And if you use promo code TakerWide, free ship, that's one word, TakerWide, free ship, you will get free shipping. So some love for him, and yeah, dapperbeardoil.com. Finally brought to you by Wellington Brewery. That's a brewery out of Guelph. They provide the beverages, and today I'm sipping on the Iron Duke, recipe 86. It's a stronger ale. I'm terrible at describing them, but do you guys even care? I don't fucking know if you guys care or not. But it's a good beer, and most of the beers are good. All of them I've had are good. The Bewitched, I think I've been sipping on, is fucking super, super good. And I believe this is part of a party pack that they sell. It's like a 4-pack. But all love to Wellington Brewery for helping fuel the conversation. So that's it. For this episode, I'm speaking to Angelo. I don't want to mispronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try. But he drummed in Hopeless Youth from Montreal and Jesus Horse and a few others I'm probably forgetting. But a beast of a drummer. Like I'm a little hesitant sometimes in sharing my kit just because some people, I don't know, can't play that well. That sounds mean, but what I mean by that is that they just kind of fuck up your heads. Mostly, I guess that. It's not so much the shells they're fucking up, but some players will just like bash in your skins and leave them with pockmarks, and it's annoying. But when I first met and played with Angelo, it's afterwards, it's a moment of, yeah, anytime you want to use the kit, man, because this Angelo's a beast behind the drums. Really creative, interesting guy. In our short bursts of conversations we've had at shows, I really wanted to sit down with him and just kind of go into music and talking about it. So, yeah, this is 205. Cool. All right, cool. So I sound all right on your end?
100%, dude. 100%.
Okay. You're coming in loud and clear. Awesome, man. Shit, I feel like this has been a long time in the coming. Like, I think I brought this up to you a couple times, and finally we're here.
Yeah, dude, it must have been like a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah, I think so, man. Like in my little intro, I was just talking about how, well, I didn't talk about this specifically, but I was talking about how we met, and then like how I'm not super stoked on lending my kid out, only because I don't know how people play. But after seeing you play, I was like, oh yeah, you can use my kid anytime. It's a fucking
Oh my God, I
real,
remember that. I remember that.
yeah. And but just I remember being at that snake pit show in Waterloo, and we kind of started riffing about music, and I was like, oh shit, this is perfect. Like, I know we can riff on that whole topic. So it's like I gotta get him on the podcast. So here we are. We're here now, man.
Super glad to hear you. Oh, I mean, to be able to speak with you. And to top it off, I want to say congrats on that backhanded interest.
Oh, cool.
It
Thanks,
sounds
man.
just as badass as. I mean, I heard it live, and that's what I was asking you about for the most recent releases. It was that particular song, and so I was really glad to see that you guys also featured it as your single. I think it's great.
Yeah, man. I'm
I mean,
happy with how everything has kind of seamlessly been going. And yeah, you had the record a little while ago, so it's cool
that's
that
right. Yeah.
everyone can kind of get it at this point. But yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited. I'm super excited. And hey, are you playing that show with us in Montreal or no?
Apparently so. Yeah. Yeah. I'm playing in Jesus Force though.
Okay, yeah. Okay, sweet. Because like, I don't know where you're at, and we can kind of jump into it. But like, so you're not playing. Who are you playing with these days?
Okay. So I was playing, I mean, I still am playing with Hopeless Youth. That's really, I think, the main kind of group I've been backing, that I got to tour with, record with. Meanwhile, probably the longest band I've been in was Jesus Horse. So even prior to Hopeless Youth, I was playing in Jesus Horse, and we're kind of on and off. So it's a little odd to say that I'm in a band when it feels more like a collective of people who get along and get together every now and then to record or to play a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was formerly in a band called Smithers, a great punk rock band that I had to drop just so I can get through with my schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for now it's Jesus Horse, Hopeless Youth. Yeah,
Okay, cool. That's great. Because I thought that you were done doing bands for now while you were doing school, but you're still doing the bands.
Yeah, like barely. I mean, I don't see either band too often. It was a matter of keeping up though, just to make sure we could still, at least jam, at least play a show here and there and record.
Okay.
But I am in essence done with music for now, and I'll come back to it later.
Yeah. That's I think a smart move. Just recently, not the last episode, but the one previous to that, I was talking to my buddy, and he's older, like me, in his 30s, and he's gone to school, and he's kind of sorting stuff out on that end, and it's great because I look back, and because you're not that old, I don't think, and I think I wish I was younger and had sorted out some sort of skill and then got that done with, so that I could just, okay, now I can pursue music. Like, you're not, how old are you, dude?
I'm 24.
Okay.
Yeah, 24. I mean, I'd still consider kind of old. I mean, I'd have the chance to, already finish the degree I'm working on now if I was doing it a bit faster. But
Yeah.
it's a bit of a juggling act. I mean, I still like having music though in the mix. It gives you some kind of motivation or something else to look forward to other than something that's academic or like work related. So it's good to have the variety. It's just that I need to draw back for maybe a year or two. I mean,
yeah. In the grand scheme, like, that's not a big deal at all. That's like if we were to realistically break down 2 years, like, you could write and record an album maybe, but whatever. Like, what is that even really? What's the rush, right? There's no rush at all. Fuck.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm not going to be any rock star. This is probably not going to be a career at all. So I'm doing this for fun, and I like doing it, and it better stay that way. If I don't, there might be a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't mind taking 2 years.
So what are you doing in school again, man?
Philosophy, master's in philosophy.
Wow, cool. And how many years is that?
Luckily, that's just 2 years. But then, unluckily, I'm going to be applying for a PhD after, so that might be God knows how many years. But I'm hoping, it's very optimistic and very unlikely. But I'd love to finish in another 2 years, so 4 years of schooling, and then kind of be out of the system.
Huh.
But it might not happen, and I don't mind if it doesn't, because at the PhD level, you could take your time. So
Wow,
it's just
man.
2 years crunch time. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Like, again, just kind of setting yourself up, because I went really hard doing music, and it was fun, and it's a great experience, but age comes and real life kind of comes, like, and I kind of wish I basically just had done some sort of skill. I still could, but it's a lot harder at my point now. Like, I think if I was early 20s, I have more time and money, more than anything, more time to figure
Right.
out some sort of schooling. But oh man, that's crazy
What kind of
philosophy.
like degree did you finish up?
I didn't like
Yeah,
do
what
shit
kind of degree
all.
did you finish up?
Nothing. I
Like high school or something?
I did high school, and then I, to appease my parents, I did 1 year of community college for a general business course, which was a pretty cool course looking back. Like I really could have applied a lot of that, like accounting and marketing, to band stuff, which I kind of did anyways. But yeah, I didn't do fuck all for school, man. So my
Dude, you don't
resume
need to. I mean,
sucks.
you can learn elsewhere. I mean, in my case, it was literally a matter of just getting the education I felt I didn't have in high school. So I don't feel like I'm learning too much more than what
Hmm.
we'd learn in high school. I'm just trying to catch up with what I missed. So
Yeah. Well, where do you
different.
go
What's
with
that?
that kind of a degree? Like a teaching, like where do you what kind of work can you get with that?
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Hmm.
I am going for the professor title. If not, I mean, look, I could be an editor. I can work for a journal. I can even work for a bank. It goes that far
Hmm.
that they want philosophers usually for bank management or HR.
Oh
I can
wow.
turn back and do stats. So I'm not too worried about the careers. It's more so the material that interests me.
Wow, man, that's so awesome, man. Like, shit, it's I think sometimes detrimental in a way. Like looking back, it was kind of detrimental
Yeah.
to throw all my eggs in one basket. Like we're just like even to the point of we're gonna live in the same band house and we're gonna tour and this is no girlfriends. Like everything is just bam, 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 bam. And looking
But
back,
dude,
it's like I could have grown as a person if I had at least kind of maybe thought more like how you're thinking.
but you did in your own way. That's the thing. You got a whole experience that I'm not going to get. So I'm not going to get to live, my early 20s hanging out and actually doing awesome shit like you did.
Well,
So,
you
yeah.
are though, I think, right? Like you play gigs, and I think a thing is like outside of touring, but even touring, it's when it's broken down, it's you're playing another dive bar to some strangers and stuff. But I don't know. It's definitely cool the stuff we've done, but it's not really that far removed from someone who hasn't toured. Like you said, you toured. Like, what did you guys do? Like, Hopeless Youth toured a little bit, like down to the states, or what did you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
do?
No states, no states. That was the aim for a while. So far, we've done here to Vancouver.
Hmm.
About what now? It's been like two times I think I've been with them.
Oh, word.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So they've had a routine of going out even before I joined in. They had a routine of going through Vancouver. I mean, we've done, of course, Western and Northern Ontario, but they're usually more local. Yeah,
Yeah. So, well, then you've had a taste of that stuff. So, yeah, I don't feel like you've missed out really any different than me. Really, when you break it down, like you fucking toured out to Van, like
yeah, yeah.
that's
Right.
a legit tour. That's missing home tour.
That's right, man. Legitimate. Nothing more legitimate than going into the Walmart at 6 in the morning, getting yourself some McDonald's, and
Yeah,
using
man.
baby wipes in the bathroom.
I never did that. And actually, I literally have like baby wipes in the house now, and I've tried it a few times, but it's weird. It's weird. I can't do it. It's too weird.
That's it. It's like a van shower. But I mean, look, I'm sure that in some measure, there's some similarity. But I think it's feeling the freedom. I think from like work, feeling the freedom
Mm,
from school that might have been nice. Just to be completely immersed in music for a while and to not think about anything else. That sounds very fun
hmm,
and very appealing. Although I didn't choose that kind of route so far.
hmm.
Um,
So choosing like a philosophy major, um, is that something you've always been interested in, or is it just kind of recently a thing you're like, oh, I'd like to get into that?
oh God. Uh, it's hard to tell when the turn happens. It's more like I guess just like anything else, I like music. I always thought of myself as a musician. I still kind of do. And it just so happened that I liked reading Plato as early as that. So we have like Cégep. It's right between I guess like high school and university. We have 2 years in between.
Okay.
So during that period of time, I encountered some philosophy, specifically Plato, and I was supposed to actually be a pure and applied science student, and I
Okay.
was supposed to be a mechanical engineer, and I ended up just liking better the subject. I kind of went with it, slid into it, and then I just kind of gets to the point where you start reading it every day, and becomes part of your everyday conversations, and that's when you kind of know like you like it enough, just like you would with music.
Huh.
When you go back home and you think about like writing a piece, or you think about a section of a song and you want to go test it out, or you actually find the same type of enjoyment in what you study if you really like what you're doing. Uh,
Huh.
so it just kind of happened over time. It's not like there was any distinctive moments or anything. And there's no one in my family that has done philosophy, so there's no precedent for it,
Wow.
really.
Huh. Well, it's interesting to think of music outside of like rehearsing and writing music. It's like I'm really drawn to people's attraction to it and in participating more, out to the point of like giving it a go to quote unquote make it or not make it, and especially the people who analyze it, like why am I doing it, and like why am I playing this certain part, or why, like the deeper parts of music. Now, for like
Right.
being interested in philosophy, where do you see that being applied to music? Like, because even me to be like, philosophy is such a broad spectrum. Like, I don't know shit about
Right.
philosophy, so I don't know. Is it? Can you apply like certain types of Plato to
Right.
your approach to music? Like, it's kind of a broad question, but it's kind of interesting
You know,
trying to tie the two things together.
right. Well, if I were to bring Plato into this, I can give you a list of modes that you're not to play. So notably in the Republic, he's famous for having said that for different divisions of people in his Republic, only certain kinds of modes, were applicable. So maybe, like, for instance, the Phrygian or Mixolydian were banned. But anyhow, in terms of philosophy, I think I understand it broadly.
Hmm.
So if you were to break down the word, simply it's the love of wisdom. And I'm someone who has the conviction that, and many people might not agree at all, I really do think that philosophy is just a matter of learning how to lead a happy life. So I think it's fundamentally intertwined with the ethical question, how do I lead a good life?
Hmm.
So in that sense, do I see it so far from music? No, of course not, because music ends up being an activity we engage in that seems to be very fulfilling and very valuable to us, and we seem to find ourselves in a sense when we get to write, when we get to be active, we find communities of friends, we get along with others through it. Like it's quite an interesting and important, I think, activity or engagement that we could find ourselves in, maybe just as meaningful or more, I would argue, than certain sports. Although I think people can equivocate the two. Maybe being biased here,
Yeah, no. I
but
think I think you're right for sure. There's similarities for sure between like at least a sports team or someone who's quote unquote suffering for their art, be it getting up at 6 a.m. and trying to play and try to figure out a way to
right.
finance their love for it. That's I think what we're doing. So I see there's being similarities for sure.
That's right. I think the added layer too is that with music, at least, if you're very, very kind of immersed in the music, you really have to realize, unless you're completely out of it and completely out of the loop of like 21st century, that you're not going to make a living
Mm.
from doing this. So a lot of people go through with different kind of financial or career sacrifices just in order to keep up playing. So there's something about it that's just very, I think, authentic, and that's, I think, an aspect I like about music, that you wouldn't be there unless you really wanted to be
Hmm.
playing the specific kind of music that you are. So I think that's also an aspect that attracts me. Now, as for, let's say, playing music, so we spoke about this at length before. Um, if I were to apply any kind of philosophical, I guess, insights here, what I've kind of thought about recently, off a comment that you made, was that, for instance, you claim that when you write, you usually think in terms of distinction between ego and less ego. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Well, yeah. We
Right.
definitely were talking about that.
So I recall you saying it was a question of, maybe right now I feel like I can take up a little more place with what I'm playing. Maybe at another section I want to kind of draw back, do something a little simpler, allow more room for the bass to come through in the vocals, whether it be for the great Sabatini, maybe the guitars.
Hmm.
Um, so what I've realized is, for a lot of, I don't know, for many years, I've been looking for that kind of distinction between two polar opposites to play around with. So at some point in time, say with Hopeless Youth, the question was simplicity, complexity. So it's usually a group that, when I play, I approach it by trying to play the absolute simplest parts I can.
Huh.
And I'm trying to reserve any kind of fill or any kind of complicated pass for just select transitions.
Hmm.
So then that distinction I'm operating with is between complexity, simplicity. Yours seem to have been ego, less ego. So it was a question of how much presence or how much room you seem to be, playing with. Another distinction that I've recently, been thinking about was contrast. So less contrast, more contrast. So for instance, maybe playing one section of a song on the hi-hats that are open and just playing, snare drum and bass drum, I can choose to then switch off and do something like with crashes and toms just to contrast the first beats.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that way, I'm playing around with um, delineating different structures of the piece just by thinking while I'm playing, oh, this is more contrast, oh, this is less contrast. So we can draw up a whole bunch of these different distinctions that we might have in mind as we play, and we might want to juggle between. And that itself seems to shape the way we end up writing. And so I think the only thing I have for you really in any kind of insight is that these different distinctions are very important. And in a sense, if we were to amass all those different distinctions we could play with, they seem to just be qualities of music in our writing. So the complexity here is you have, for instance, ego, simplicity, complexity, contrast, polyrhythm. You have all these different qualities, and if we were to emphasize them in particular, we get a whole new way of playing out of it, and yet they all exist at the same time. And I think that's where the kind of creativity comes in, that you can choose anything and go anywhere, and you have all these different qualities to juggle with. And that's what I find is complex about music.
Yeah, man. Wow, yeah, you really wrapped that up really well. Like, even in what you're speaking about, it sounds like ego isn't really at the forefront of your playing. Where for me, I don't think it is, but I'm constantly questioning it. Like, why did I play that part? Was it like, because we know that when we write music, people are gonna hear it. So how much of that is influencing what I'm gonna play? Like, I feel like I'm learning and I'm pretty decent and getting better at contrasts, and especially with Grabert, like and you really need to be focused on what I'm playing because it's that much more important because there's only the two of us, you know what I mean? But it's do you, like, is your playing, would I be correct to say that like ego is something you've kind of tackled and it's kind of at the back, it's there because you play very fearlessly, and there's like, I think when I watch you play, it's even after talking to you, because it was going to be two things. When I saw you play and I was like, man, that was great. It could have been like kind of, yeah, I know. Or how you were like, oh, like kind of super humble about it. Like, thank you. Have you ever had to worry about your ego, or did you check that a long time ago and let other parts come ahead?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Um, I think it's always there. I think you're correct to say that too. It always floats around. You always want to make sure that you just, didn't go too far. Although, in many ways, because I come from a background where I played in a progressive metal band, ever since I was 15. So between the ages of 15 and almost 18, I had the kind of group of people, two of which ended up going into universities for composition. And one of them in classical composition, he's going to go do his PhD. The other one, master's in jazz composition.
Wow.
And we used to do things like we used to have literally at band practice used to be music theory course. We used to sit down. I had one guy in the band, play on the piano and have us sing different scales or chords based on the root notes. And
wow,
yeah, it was very odd, very structured. All the songs were written on, let's say, Guitar Pro. It was all very kind of intellectual. So from the get-go, I started off with a band that was highly structured, highly technical. We kind of tried to copy, Dream Theater, Symphony X, Between the Buried and Me, those kinds of group. Even Cynic. I don't know if you're familiar with Cynic, like the offshoot from okay. So I came from that type of background only to wind up in a ska band, actually, by 18 or 19, which must have been, I'm sorry to all bands I'm playing with now, but that must have been the best band I've ever played in my whole life,
Yeah.
we used to get together, drink a couple of Paps, and I didn't give a shit, they gave me the little kit and they were like, just go. And I was like, yeah, man, two-tone beats. And I was just like, I get to do a roll here and there, and we're having such a good time. And I didn't care, it was about we had my singer do things like rip off his clothes and then start throwing my cymbal stand at me and toppling my my toms, and then we used to start fighting in the middle of the show. And
wow,
what
band was this called?
Boris Fiddle.
Boris Fiddle. Okay,
Boris
wow.
Fiddle, yeah.
I want to see some YouTube videos of that. But yeah, go ahead.
it was a fun band. We were kids. We were having fun, and so the contrast was that coming out of a very complex, structured, ordered background into something like ska, where it's all about having fun, making friends, having a good time. I kind of stopped caring about proving myself, to be technical. It was kind of assumed. It was like, okay, I already know I can be technical, and now I can just have fun with these things. And so I carried with that type of attitude until eventually I lost out on the technicality.
Hmm.
So we find ourselves today, and I can't really play the same things I used to. Where I used to cover bands like the Faceless, or
Wow.
all these crazy big metal, technical death metal bands. I used to love bands like starring Janet Leigh.
Oh wow, yeah. Shit, those
Yeah,
guys were. I haven't heard that in a while.
exactly, man. They were my idols, in a sense. So I had all the even Dillinger Escape Plan. I had all these groups that just used to really turn me on. They still do. It's just I used to try to like emulate them, and I think the transition between, let's say, like progressive metal and ska, which is very conventional, everybody goes through. I think shed a little bit, my concern with the question of ego.
Hmm.
Instead, I became very obsessed with the concept of like style. So the question of taste, the question of placement.
Hmm.
So I guess one distinction I didn't raise was purposiveness or structure and chaos. So some drummers are fantastic at just writing parts that seem like they always just fit and they cannot be any different. And they took like the one road that seemed to have summarized every other possible road,
Hmm.
and they did it, every single step of the way. And then you got drummers like Thomas Pridgeon from the Mars Volta,
Hmm.
who just he seems to play like it's kind of the jazz approach, big band approach. He's got a few things he had to hit, a couple of rhythms, and then everything in between was all chaotic. It's all like just him improvising, and it sounds so good.
Hmm.
And so a real big preoccupation for me was to get away from trying to do things that are complicated and trying to be comfortable doing things that were very simple and very tasteful.
Hmm.
So instead of thinking of it in terms of like more ego, less ego, it was about structure and then improvisation. Trying to get a balance between the two, where some things felt like they were necessary and they had a purpose, and other things were just self-expression.
Wow.
That became, I think, my real kind of struggle for many years. Still now, I don't really have it down.
Well, it's hard to know when you're done with that specifically because you what's a good song? Like there's many versions of a good song. Like who
Right.
knows if I've finished being part of the best song I'll ever be a part of, or if it's still to come. That's what's kind of the nice thing about playing, creating, is that it's never done. Like if
Right.
if you had a goal to be the richest guy in the world and then you become that, then what? Like it's kind of nice to never be done with music. When are you gonna be done? Like as far as like
I
writing and
I think you
developing, it never ends.
Yeah, I think you're damn right. I don't even think there's a single thing you can do in this world that will really come to some kind of completion unless you say something like, "I'd like to finish drinking this glass of milk."
Yeah.
Um, I think so. Yeah, you're right in that respect. Right, that there's no end. I mean, there's always some kind of not room for improvement, but there's room for alteration. There's always room to change something to make something feel fresh where it may have seemed a little older, a little like too familiar. And that might be part of the beauty of music, is that it has to be renewed constantly. So no matter what we're doing, it has to take back the old tropes and it has to renew them, refresh them by taking some kind of quality of it and either exaggerating it or making it more subtle. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're always, I mean, I think it's the same in comedy, uh, even philosophy, literature. We always find this kind of recurrence of older themes that we try to expose in some kind of different light. So it's about kind of really exhausting an idea or an approach and moving on. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right. There is no end in that sense. It's always very exciting and
For sure.
always in the process of change.
Man,
It's great.
sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's
No problem.
like you're not young, you're not old, but it's kind of like you're talking like a dude who's been playing music for a long time, or at least to me in my head, you don't sound like a 24-year-old musician guy because you've become proficient and then you've gone past that and thought about meaning of it and like you said contrast and this and that. Like have you been playing since you were a little kid, or like when did you start? Because to me it thinks like I feel like, oh, he must have started really young to get to this point now, because for me I started at a certain point, and I'm only comparing you and me, but it's like I'm only now
Yeah.
starting to think about these ideas. I wasn't thinking about this stuff at 24 at all.
Well, shit. Well, when did you start?
Well, I started playing drums when well, let's say band stuff. My first tour with my first band was in '03, and I was 20. But
Okay.
as far as the approach to music, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I wasn't thinking about my ego or parts, or I was really just like an infant, in which I was musically. I was an infant, like not thinking about it. And I think about it now just because I've been doing it for so long, and I've only like it's like kind of
Right.
sitting in solitary confinement. You're just sitting there for so long in this So eventually, you start thinking of these kind of abstract ideas. At
Right.
least, I don't know, maybe that's a bad metaphor, but do you have musical parents, or like where does this all kind of come to
Yeah.
fruition now in your life? Did you start really young?
If 10 years old is considered young, but
Hmm.
not younger than that. I mean, other than that, I had my mother she's been playing piano since she was probably about 6 years old.
Okay.
Classically trained, very, very kind of austere about how we ought to approach musical theory and musical structure. So she had me, for instance, like singing or playing very basic piano ever since I was maybe like 5.
Okay.
But for any instrument that I really dedicated myself to, it must have been, yeah, 10 years old. I had about 7 years of private lessons with like a great drummer, um, Bissonnette, who had a master's degree in percussions. So he would have taught me anything from, like, let's say, Cuban drumming to jazz drumming. I could have learned marimba with him. I just didn't have the money to afford a marimba, of course, uh, which it'd be awesome. I'd love to juggle 4 sticks, at once. Uh, so I've been definitely, I've had the entourage, most definitely, mainly from the professor, from my mother, but then aside from that, I've been playing in bands since I'm maybe 12.
Okay.
So all throughout high school, it was always a question of competition. Every band in every grade was competing with the other band of the older grade,
Yeah.
and it was a game of me trying to get in with the older kids, and then with whatever bands I had, I so happened to have met what I think is the equivalent of musical prodigies. Notably, two of them, I think, were just phenomenal musicians all around who understood the theory, who had the feeling. It was right in their bones, and so I think a lot of people contributed to whatever I got to know or to get out of music. So I was fortunate in that sense, definitely. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, like, what is it about? Um, it's like because with the chops you have, you could have done anything, but you're ripping basement gigs in Waterloo, mad volume. Like, what is it about that was appealing? Because if your mom was classically trained, I don't know if she was playing like metal stuff when you were a kid,
Oh
but it's
no.
interesting to see that sort of. I just picture you as a little young kid, and a lot of us got into punk and metal, so it's not like so crazy of an idea. But if you were playing and you had chops and you kind of had this sort of lineage of maybe not super aggressive stuff, what is it about that style for you that's appealing?
Fucking shit. I didn't think about this, but I, I think that
I can
for
tell you what
first,
it is for me. Sorry, like
you know
I
what? Go
don't.
for it. You know what? How about that? I'll think about my answer meanwhile.
Yeah, well, it's for me. I try to break it down like why I'm playing metal, aggressive metal music, or whatever. But it's for me,
Right.
it's like it's almost like Clark Kent Superman shit. Like I feel Supermanish. I feel it's like an alter ego because I'm not an angry guy and I'm not like a violent guy, and like aggressive music kind of embodies this like sort of rage. So it's like
Right. Right.
kind of it's like I feel like I think I just it's a power that I feel like I feel electric playing that type of stuff, and I can enjoy other types of music, but it just doesn't give me that same feeling as aggressive music. So that's for me, and that's based on me kind of being a meek little like nerd.
Oh, come on, you're not an. Actually, I was just gonna say, if Gribber was gonna like have any kind of Halloween show, you guys should dress up like Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh shit! You
You
know
guys.
who? You ever see that show Clone High?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man.
So we always, not
Can't be.
always, but yeah, Bergs could be Abe and I would be Gandhi. That would be our costume.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know, because
Yo,
that guy looks just like Mark in the cartoon.
yo, that's actually
I
perfect.
know. So someone just recently pointed that out, and both of our minds were just, oh my god! If I was bald, it would be perfect.
Yo, that is actually, never mind. I retract that statement.
I know, it's
I
crazy.
totally clone high. I will come to see you even if you play in fucking Kitchener, Ontario.
We'll just do the theme song for Clone High and then call
Oh,
it a
dude,
wrap. That was a great
such a good.
show, eh?
It really was, and it's a really great theme song too. I'm just a little sidetracking, but it's a good theme song I found for any show. It's odd and it's
Yeah, one
great.
season, I think, and then they shut her down. If no one's seen it, you should check it. It's fucking super good. But yeah, it just curious as to why you're
Yeah.
ripping metal gigs in basements when you don't have to. You have skills to play whatever. So
Yeah, jazz and stuff. You know what? I did play some somewhat jazzy shows. I've played in a pop rock band where I did like it was kind of like a take back on 50s like blues and rock music, a band called the Slacks. It was like notably my cousin was a guitar player, and I played drums with them for a while. That was really fun. I've played, like I said, a pop punk band, Smithers, well, punk rock, pop punk, which is also more kind of fun, upbeat. Let me try to think. The ska band too was slightly different,
Hmm.
but it did have the aggressive edge. You're correct. You'd be correct about that. Uh, if I were to narrow it down, I think you're correct to point out that there's something about like some kind of empowerment or something that goes on that I think maybe when I was younger, especially that aspect came out a lot when I play.
Hmm.
Whereas recently, um, I think maybe for the past like 5 years, the reason why I've been attracted to this kind of music is that it's just it's chaos. It's
Hmm.
pure, I completely unhinge. I just do whatever I want. I give myself 100% to playing my instrument, and I
Huh.
completely I like the feeling of losing myself, but not just losing myself in the sense of I kind of just get sucked in the music and that's it. Losing myself in the sense of I'm so like energetic, I'm so kind of rushed, I'm so pumped with adrenaline that I completely lose this kind of self consciousness I usually have. So I forget about myself for a second, and I'm just giving it my all. And I love seeing people, get into it just as much and just full of adrenaline. And like I love the feeling that there's a weird unity and just like how crazy and manic everything is. I like that aspect.
Man,
Just getting fucked up, getting drunk and just playing. It's a good release.
man, I think that what you just described, it sounds to some people maybe like you lose yourself, but it's like no, that's a real thing. I don't. My big struggle, man, is trying to get to that point every set, which is fucking
Yeah.
so hard. It's so
Just gotta
hard
let go.
because I'm thinking of don't drop the stick, or like this sounds weird, or this person's at the gig, or this position on stage, or I ate this
Right.
earlier, and like,
I
oh
see. Yeah.
man, like a few times, not I don't know how many times, but I could see why. Yeah, for sure. Maybe both of us play aggressive music because it lends itself to kind of reach that mental state of kind of just like watching yourself play the set.
Yeah, that's damn right. Typically, or at least in my case, I think this was not something I did consciously, so I'm having a hard time formulating, what my experience here. But I think the way that I suck myself into that position is actually by playing loud, by playing fast, by playing loud to the point where like my bones ache and my muscles really hurt, and so you don't have the option to think about how do I look, or because I get what you're saying, the kind of anxiety as you're playing, you're worried about who's there and what they're looking at, and you want to get your feel right, and you want
Yeah.
to that kind of I just get to a point where I don't give a shit. It gets to a point where I'm just in so much pain and I'm so exhausted that I just want the song to be over. And
Wow,
but I
dude.
have to keep, you have to keep up the energy too. So you feel like on one end, I have to finish the song and I have to do it, I have to finish with a bang. And I also want it to be done. And so when I'm caught between that kind of odd contradiction, I want to finish, but it really hurts and I don't want to finish.
Hmm.
uh, I stop thinking about other things. And so in that way, I'm kind of inevitably, I think, lost in a way. And
Hmm.
that's cool. It's just feeling kind of like I couldn't care less. I just am doing this odd kind of exercise that's also giving me a whole bunch of energy and it's getting me into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Like what
yeah,
else
yeah,
does that for you? For me, nothing does.
that's getting really drunk and it's definitely one. And I think the other is actually reading a lot actually but you have to be very like embedded and it's reading at the point where you start losing it. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen too often. It's usually like end of semesters. It's kind of like say you spent it's happening quite often
Hmm.
it's happened quite often recently, where you sit down for like 10 hours of your day and 10 hours straight, or you maybe go to the washroom a couple of times, but all you're doing is you're killing yourself over trying to read a couple of passages, make
Hmm.
sense of them, reinterpret everything you read in a book based off a couple of passages, and eventually like you face so much kind of like anxiety and despair trying to get the answer, trying to find something, that you just completely forget that you're doing anything. You forget that, for instance, my name is Steve and I'm reading a book.
Hmm.
You get lost in that activity of what does it mean, where is it
Hmm.
going, what can I do with this. But that, I think, the amount of time it takes to get there, and I think even the amount of years it takes to get to that level of comfort where you can engage with books in that way,
Hmm.
there's quite a high barrier. Whereas I think with something like music, it was just, having confidence, and just pushing yourself to your limits, physically,
Hmm.
that can get you into that state. Whereas with
Hmm.
something like reading, I think unfortunately you just have to put in the years before you start being familiar with certain texts and being able to read these texts as if you're listening to somebody speak to you.
Yeah, I struggle with that with books to retain um, stuff. I toy and I've tried to do meditation and I play with it. Do you meditate at all?
No, I
No,
mean,
eh?
I'm not like in the Buddhist sense, no.
Because
But definitely,
you go ahead, buddy.
oh, I was going to say in the sense where like I might take a couple of passages of a book and take some time to reflect on them,
Hmm.
to not do anything else, but really think about that. In that sense, I meditate. So I meditate on questions, but not like in the
Traditional
Buddhist sense.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
right.
I think about that state of not being clouded with other thoughts, and I want to try to achieve that playing, but also almost day to day. Like when my phone distracts me, or if I'm trying to go to bed, even just trying to go to bed, I'm thinking way too much. Like everybody I feel like has a lot going on, a lot of thoughts, but it's managing all of that I want to do a better job of. And maybe I don't know, the vibe that I get from you anytime I've talked to you, I'm like just kind of like you're kind of insightful, like you're moving at a pace and observing, even just like little notes you make about the set or whatever this. I'm like, oh, you're like a
Right.
like sensitive in that you're noticing what's happening. And I'm like, and I'm always, this is my problem. I'll see someone, I'll talk to them, and I'll assume. I'm like, okay, I think I know the mechanisms behind it. But even in your, please, let's say about your playing, when you play
Right.
it, it's like, oh yeah, he's like I said, you're fearless playing and powerful playing, but that's not, and it's like genuine. There's people I see who do it, and I don't feel it in my gut, and I'm like, this is put on. When you play,
Hmm.
it's kind of like, oh, like I love to watch it because it's like that's legit, that's real. And then I
Right.
think as a drummer, it's like, where's his head at? It must be so kind of clear, and like if you don't meditate, like
Right.
I don't know, like it's kind of a huge question, but like your day to day, like how do you manage that? Are you generally a calm guy, or do you have like 1,000 things going on in your head every day, or not every day, but like generally?
Well, I mean, I'm a human like any other. So like, okay, how can I put this? Um, I think just like you, I'm aware of the fact that I get distracted. I fall into patterns of procrastination, and I try to be attuned to that. And I think you do that just as well. Um, so in that sense, I think I'm just as aware of how easily I can be distracted. Though there are times, I think over the years where I've tried to really bring to mind certain problems, and I try to work them out throughout the day, or I try to work them out at least if I'm sitting down and just really try to focus on this one idea. Um, so it's been an exercise over the years. I think an exercise of patience, of just trying to just take it easy and to just try to really let something sit for a while and see where it goes with it, or see where I can go with it. In terms of music, or like you said, making comments about other people's playing, uh, it's just a matter of trying to switch your brain off. Like sometimes you got to just you stand there and just you can either think, okay, can I find something that I appreciate about what I'm seeing? What can I? Because in a sense, I do think, what can I possibly say? If someone has been watching me play, someone has had the patience, and someone has been nice enough in a way, to stand and to watch, then
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to return the favor. So I usually, to get myself to being observant, the question is, what about this do I like? What would I like to, for instance, adopt from what I'm seeing? What can I make of it? What's being expressed here? So then I try to, pick out, I guess, a couple of things that I liked. And so in that way, it's not that calm. I mean, insofar as I'm setting for myself different objectives as I go along. I think the difficulty, though, is trying to stay on task and getting things done as you intend them to.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wake up in the morning and say, today I really want to finish reading, let's say, this section of a book, and then I really want to write this thing, and then I can go on and do something, with my free time. uh, I still struggle with trying to get these types of projects done, these
Mm-hmm.
little everyday projects. But for the music thing, it's um it's a question of letting go fully. just stopping to be worried about what you look like, what people think of you. It's really just an act of confidence in the sense of just completely letting go of whatever kind of rational awareness you have, and just giving into what I usually call Dionysus.
Hmm.
Dionysus versus Apollos, the two Greek gods. There, one of them
Oh.
is wine, madness, laughter, nature. The other one being structure, order, light, medicine.
Hmm.
So you got to give into Dionysus. If you're gonna be part of the arts, you gotta learn to let go and just kind of almost take the back seat on yourself. Just kind of let yourself go as you'd organically go, and not apologize for it and not feel worried about it. And
Well, the end
sure,
result is like on my end watching. It's just great to see a good band play with heart, and
right,
outside from that, like I really get off on just the realness of it, of people who do it because it's like they would love to. That's the whole fucking idea behind this show, is like I want to talk to people who do it because they love to do it. There's a lot of people
oh,
who,
sorry, I think you just cut off there.
oh, it's okay. Well, on my end, it still record, but I was just saying that
Yep.
I appreciate like realness. The whole kind of
Right.
reasoning behind this podcast is to talk to people who are real about what they do, because that's really important in this whole.
Right.
Here I go, like I'll go on rants sometimes on this fucking thing about like how music's great, but it is really great. It's a gift. It's important, and it should be respected, and the people who partake in it and respect it as an art itself, it's like I love that. But I don't want to go too deep, and like we could just go back on layers and layers of why we are who we are. There's a few
Right.
other things I wanted to ask, just because the Jesus horse recorded with Ballou, with Kurt, or
Right.
Ballou, however you say it.
Yep.
How did that happen, and what was that like recording with him?
Um, I got drunk, like very drunk. I was going through metalsucks.net. I found, this kind of like it was like an ad out on Metal Sucks, calling in bands for this contest, Converse rubber tracks. If you win, you get to record either with Kurt Ballou, or there's also the fuck, I forgot what the other studio was. But either way, basically, like I saw the kind of participation form. I filled it out for Jesus Horse. It was the absolute worst application I've ever filled out in my life.
Why?
Uh, well, yeah, I just kind of like copy pasted what we had in our Bandcamp, and if you ever read that, it's completely stupid.
Uh,
Or to open it up, I'll try to read this just because it's kind of worth it. I didn't write this,
uh,
and I don't know who wrote our description. I still find it kind of funny. Let's see, what did I write? All I wrote was four dudes from Montreal making loud music about stuff. Not sure how they met, but thankfully they did, because this music is rad. They're also super good looking and incredibly dangerous. And
that's what you submitted.
that's all I submitted, and apparently over 6,000 bands, we were one of the three. Now, okay, the real story behind that too is that Kurt Ballou had a friend. I don't know who exactly the friend was, who so happened to have come out on Montreal this one night when Jesus Horse was playing a show at it's this bar we have called Trash Bar. Trash Bar is a mix between like they have like skateboard ramps in the middle of the bar, and they have a lot of music events. It's a kind of like skate punk looking venue. It was, I think, like our first or second show, and at the same time, our singer had started up this company, Dirty Dogs. They were selling, Chicago style hot dogs. They were just very like big looking hot dogs with this, stuff like macaroni and cheese and shit as like toppings.
Okay.
So he was doing this kind of dual task of setting up an event for his restaurant and then playing with his band. And it so happened that night that the microphone wasn't working when Jesus Horse played, and we were the first band up. So our singer, who's still wearing his like gloves that he was serving hot dogs with, full of grease, was running around in the skate bowl, grabbing people by like the collar of their shirts and yelling at them in their face
Hmm.
while we were playing, and throwing like construction cones at each other in the middle of the bowl.
Okay.
And it so happened that this friend of Kurt Ballou's was at this show. So when he saw the name on the application, he kind of got Kurt to take us in. And the experience was kind of just like we got a message. I didn't get the message, or the singer of the band did. He sent me a text message saying, "Oh, like these guys at Converse are asking us about recording studio time." And all I told him was like, "Yeah, fuck that. It's a scam. They're trying to get money from us." And and it took a good like month and a half before I remembered that that was the name of a competition that I signed us up. So, but you know what? Honestly, getting there, it's a little surreal in a sense, because you got these groups that were so influential and important in either metalcore or hardcore, even punk, and you got these guys all of a sudden who were helping you out, like recording you. It's just like I don't know. It's like something larger than yourself that's helping you. That's a little special for once.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, he was great. Kurt, he knew what he was doing, ground up. It was just a fantastic setup on the drums. I got to play on, like his zombie like snare drum.
Huh.
Everything was just phenomenal from the recording process to the insights he had. I think we may have weirded him out a little bit.
Why?
For instance, we'd be playing through our songs. We'd be like, yeah, we want to redo the chorus, and he'd be like, there's a chorus. So the typical kind of response we got was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Which is great because it kind of goes, I think, with a bit of the attitude of the group. It's just to have fun, to put something out there that we enjoy ourselves, and we're not coming up here trying to act as if we're like macho or funny in any sense. It's really just like us shooting the shit, having fun, and we got this awesome opportunity to work with a great artist and a great recorder and producer.
Wow. Was it live off
yeah,
the
it was
floor?
a great experience.
Was it? Did you guys do it live off? Because it's 4 tracks, 5 tracks.
Five tracks that really just count as like 1 or 2. We didn't do live off the floor. Okay, so the way it worked is we started off playing the skeletons. So it was, for instance, guitar player Luke and myself would play through the tracks, and then at least Kurt would have like a kind of idea as to how the song was structured, and then I'd go back over just with the click drums, and then after that we'd take care of doing the guitars, bass, and finally vocals. So it was track by track.
Okay, cool. Well, it's like sounds so good. Mark, like he has a solo project called Cancelled,
Right.
and Kurt recorded that, and it wasn't cheap. Or Kurt didn't record it; he mixed it, and it wasn't cheap. So that's like a huge thing to win that and to have him behind it, and it sounds great, man. It's fucking it's such a useful, important sort of tool in a sea of a million bands. Like, yeah, to have your music produced well and recorded well is what an opportunity, man. Fuck. And great that you guys aren't a shitty band, that it fell on an opportunity. I feel like maybe could have been missed if it was some other band that either didn't have their shit together or mostly just that, I guess. But fuck, that's so cool you guys got to do that, man.
Yeah, we're extremely grateful for Kurt Ballou's work and for Converse Rubber Tracks. They really did us a solid, and beyond just being something that helped out the band. Like, I think it was a really unique experience for everyone there. So I'd like to say it publicly, I guess. I'm very thankful for the entire experience there. But you're right. It was I still think the sound was phenomenal. I was very, very happy with everything that came out of there, and it felt like I finally did something that was at least partly substantial, because I'd always tried recording before, but it never kind of came out with that kind of quality, with that kind of depth, because the guy is just so good at what he does. Anything he touches will turn to gold in the hardcore scene.
Yeah. Did you guys have to get working papers to get to the border? Like, did he come up, or you guys went down there to him?
Oh, we went down, and we didn't go to God City. It was the actual Converse studio in Boston, so not Salem.
Okay.
That's right. It was like a state-of-the-art looking studio, very nice studio nonetheless. A lot of elements, I think, of Kurt Ballou's usual sound were missing, only insofar as he was using a different console, different room, different instruments. But he still, I think, made it work really, really well. The time allotted, I mean, we had 16 hours.
Wow.
So we really, really made we were literally at the end. Our guitar player Luke was trying to play the synth parts for the song "All Your Heroes Get Sex Changes," and we had like 30 minutes left, and we literally finished when Kurt was like, "Okay, guys, we have like 20 seconds. You got to record this part now."
Holy shit!
It's a fuck up or no fuck up. He finished his parts really quickly, and we were able to then just finalize the project. We really used up every single second we could on that one. Wow. So that was super great, actually.
Hell, that's so crazy, man. That's so cool. So bananas. Yeah, to win. Because you see those things and you think they're bullshit. It's like, I'm not gonna fucking win this. Why good thing you were drunk, man. Good thing you applied.
Dude, I know. That's what I'm saying. It fucking happened. Like, what? That's why I thought it was a scam. I was like, this is bullshit. I figured they were like, I was gonna ask, like, what's the rates? Like, what are they gonna try to charge us? Like 5 or 10,000? Like, I can't afford that. Nobody can afford that here.
There's that's so bananas, man. There's a few more like kind of lowball questions I want to ask, but I'm genuinely curious to it. Like, these questions get asked all the time, but
Sure.
like the best show you've ever played? A top 3, let's say.
Yeah. Let's see. Uh, Man, this is hard. I think that one of the best shows I've ever played must be with Jesus Horse. There was this one night where it was like in the early stages of the band. We thought it would be funny, and it really wasn't that funny. We thought it was funny to wear ski masks and to like do shit like put a whole bunch of like upside down crosses on our faces, and we had like our guitar player with like the kind of like the fuck like Kiss like cat like whiskers nose. And it was one of our first shows. So people didn't recognize us in the first place, although they knew who we were. They couldn't see us with the masks. We showed up with a whole bunch of white socks that we had painted, and we bought from this giant tigers and ramen noodles and Kool-Aid jammers to sell as merch right next to another local band, Kennedy.
Oh yeah, those guys are awesome.
Exactly, yeah, they're the best. And so we stationed ourselves right next to them just to kind of like up the competition here. We're trying to win, try to sell our socks. And I just recall like getting on the stage and just being able to fuck around and just having a good time the whole night. That must have been one show particularly. Also, it's when our guitar player still had his wireless guitar, so he was able to like go take a whiz while we were playing. We kind of like lost him at some point. Yeah. That was I think one of our tops. If not, there was this show we played near the old Turbo House here in Montreal. Anyways, the point is, it was this really big, ugly looking building we used to jam at, and they had this really little punk looking room. It was just, I don't know, just completely obscure and out of the way in a sense. We got to play, and I just recall just being so weird. I think everybody in our band, we all felt weird about playing. I think the crowd felt weird, and in the end, the crowd loved it. And so that was one fun show, just like the smallest, dingiest show in the middle of nowhere with barely any crowd, and yet the only people that were there were extremely into it, and we were just kind of like, throwing ourselves on the floor, throwing our equipment around, just causing a scene, I think. So we have a couple of stories like that. Typically, it'll be Jesus Horse, though, is one of my favorite bands to play with, because it's just we just in a sense cause a scene. We're not really playing music so much as we're performing some kind of act, and any show usually, like, so long as the right energy is around, I think I really enjoy.
Awesome, man. I guess on the other hand, worst one, gear fucking up, or like something that comes to mind.
Worst show must have been again with Jesus Horse. We played at McGill University one night at the pub. And like that night, there was a whole bunch of like hipster kids just trying to drink their pitchers, and here we come along after an acoustic act plays. It was a show for like the socialist organization at McGill, and just to let you know, nobody in Jesus Horse I think is a socialist. I'm pretty sure we're all fine with being like liberals and with being a part of the capitalistic model. We're not completely capitalistic, but we're not socialists or communists either. So we're playing at this show whose ideology like we don't actually support, and we're playing to a whole bunch of hipsters who just kept on like taking their chairs and moving away from the stage progressively as we kept playing. And we just like spent the whole night cranking the amps like louder and louder as we kept going. So it was the worst insofar as it was probably the most uncomfortable thing I've done. Having to play there. It's because like there wasn't much of a crowd. It wasn't a good lineup. It was just like a stupid show through and through. That kind of wasted our time in. So that must have been one.
Those happen, man. But shit, dude, I do these about an hour, and then I do the Hibzine, which is I just play some music from the guest because people have been listening for an hour. So I'm sure people are curious to hear your mindset actually on track. So I wanted to play Home Invasion off of the 100%. EP, off the Jesus Horse EP, if that's cool.
Fuck yeah, man.
Okay, cool. I'll do it after because I have to edit it. But this is Jesus Horse's Home Invasion.
Hero!
Kurt Ballou. What do you guys have next? I saw something like there's another EP or an LP, or the post was confusing because like, yeah,
Yeah.
what's next?
Let me just read it first. I want to make sure, 'cause I don't want to kind of misrepresent what the intention was here. 'Cause this was, I think, Luke and Levi, so the singer and the guitar player's intentions. Fuck, come on, let's go.
I'm gonna guess. I could
Yep.
probably pull it up.
Yeah, I'm also opening. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so the title is officially "It Was the Blurst of Times," a collection of B-sides.
Okay.
So the idea is that the EP with Kurt Ballou is the first official thing we've ever released.
Okay.
It's 7 minutes long.
Yes.
This is the B-side compilation. It's going to be about 15 to 17 minutes long. I think the idea is that it's all the songs we had like recorded before Kurt Ballou, and we had ready, and we just were too lazy to go out and to really like flesh them out properly. And we decided like we're either going to kind of put this out or it's just going to stay on the shelf forever. So here you go. We're kind of just putting out everything we had. And from now on, we have some more tracks in the making, and they're getting progressively weirder. So the kind of Every Time I Die, Dillinger Escape Plan stream is coming to an end, and it's going towards, I don't know if you're familiar with Exotic Animal Petting Zoo.
The name kind of rings a bell, but no.
Okay, it's fine. It's so it's just getting a little more like on the ambient side, a little more expressive, a little simpler too. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how about the Hopeless Youth guys? What's going on with you guys?
We're pretty much ready or due for like another album. So the question now is finding, someone to record it with, and making sure that we're ready to go in and to finish it out. So I think I don't want to spoil too much. I don't know how much the guys wanted to.
Yeah, it's all good.
But generally, what I can say is we've probably sided a little bit more with a kind of like metal stream. We've distanced ourselves a bit more from the first EP and Disgust.
Okay.
So the EP that we dropped, Devil Walk With Me, is probably like a good type of reference to where we were going.
Okay.
And if anything, we got a little bit more on the metal side, and we should be having like 2 tracks coming out.
Cool.
Not too long. So we're gonna be dropping 2 tracks. It was supposed to be a split, and now I guess it's just gonna be a kind of like I guess a random like release along the way. And then we have the album that we're in the mix, working towards.
Hell yeah, man! Fucking stoked, dude. Well, shit, man. That was really great, man. I've been wanting to sit down and talk to you, and sort of channel those gig talks that we have onto something like this. So I hope people listening got something out of it, and if anything, if in anything, fuck it, I got to talk to my buddy Angelo. So, how do people find the bands? JesusHorse.bandcamp?
Is it like Jesus Horse? Might be with like an H.
I'm not sure. If worst case, just if you're listening to this on your iPhone, just click in the description, and I'll have all the links there. So people, it's 2018. You should be able to figure out how to Google search this shit. But Google search Hopeless Youth, Jesus Horse, and fuck, I don't know. Let me just close this off, dude. Just stay on the line.
Sure.
So this is Taker Wide Guys 205. This was brought to you by DaveLevittPhotography.ca. Go like him. Go like his page. Give him a high five. DapperBeardOil.com. Just go there. Check it out. Scope it out. If you like something, purchase it and use the promo code TakerWide free ship for free shipping. And finally, by Wellington Brewery for the beers. If you're in Southern Ontario, go buy one of those beers. And yeah, Taker Wide. Mostly every Monday. If you guys can rate and review. Like, I think every week I say this and no one does, but I think it helps, so it'd be cool. The audience is slowly growing, so if you can tell a friend, rate it, review it on iTunes. The Instagram page is Taker Wide Podcast. Go follow that. Like the Facebook page on Facebook if you are not if you're listening to this on Facebook, I'm just continuously posting the videos of the audio on there. And whatever, just tell a friend or don't tell a friend, whatever. It's fine. This is a fun little thing to do. So I'll be back next week, and thanks for listening, guys.